She concealed that .357 Magnum behind her back, walked in to her own bedroom, and then fired 3 shots.
She ran into the backyard. I tried to follow her. She jumped the fence and ran. She shot me in the neck.
Carly Gregg and her mom, Ashley, were very close. Even so, Carly had a hard childhood. As a teenager, she started smoking marijuana to deal with her anxiety and depression. Later, her therapist gave her strong antidepressants to stop the voices in her head. Her life was going in the wrong direction, and when Ashley finally found out how bad things were, Carly shot her. Carly's father struggled with drug addiction and had mental health problems like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. His marriage with Ashley was full of fights and sometimes became violent. Carly often saw bruises and cuts on her mom after their arguments. One night, Ashley took Carly and left the house. After that, her parents got divorced. Carly visited her dad a few times a month, but she didn't like it. His moods would change from being distant to very angry. She also felt scared when he drove recklessly. Carly worried that she might end up like him because mental illnesses and addiction can run in families. Ashley had also faced a lot of pain. Before Carly was born, she lost a baby daughter who was just 18 months old. Carly was 4 when it happened and was heartbroken by the loss. Despite her struggles, people described Carly as smart, determined, and friendly. She was ahead of her classmates in school and even skipped the 3rd grade because of her intelligence. Carly and her mom, Ashley, moved in with Ashley's second husband, Heath Smiley, in Brandon, Mississippi. Ashley and Heath got along well, and their family seemed to live a happy, middle-class life. However, Carly was expelled from 7th grade for bringing a Swiss Army knife to school. It wasn't clear why she had the knife, but it could have been an innocent mistake. The issue eventually passed, and Carly later started attending Northwest Rankin High School in Flowood, Mississippi, where Ashley worked as a math teacher. In 2013, as a freshman, Carly earned the school's Student of the Year award, but things started to go downhill the following year. By her sophomore year, Carly was vaping, smoking marijuana, and using burner phones to talk to friends. Like many teenagers, she struggled with anxiety and depression. She began keeping a journal to sort through her thoughts and emotions. In it, she wrote about her beliefs, including that there was no God, no heaven or hell, and that people could create their own destinies. Carly also expressed her fascination with fire, describing it as powerful, beautiful, and dangerous. Some of Carly's journal entries were more disturbing. She wrote phrases like, "You don't need a family," and "It's okay to be evil." Ashley didn't know about the drugs, the vaping, the burner phones, or the troubling journal entries. Still, she noticed that Carly was struggling. She grew especially concerned when Carly cut off her long blonde hair, which she had always taken pride in. Ashley asked Carly to promise she wasn't trying to become a boy. Though it may have been said jokingly, Ashley might have wondered if Carly was going through an identity crisis. Carly later told a friend that her haircut made her look more gay, but this didn't necessarily confirm her sexuality. Worried about Carly, Ashley took her to see a therapist named Rebecca Kirk. The therapist didn't believe Carly was struggling with her sexuality, but noted that she was dealing with several serious issues. Despite this, Miss Kirk thought Carly was managing relatively well. Carly started taking the antidepressant Zoloft, but switched to Lexapro later when Zoloft didn't help her symptoms. By mid-March 2024, one of Carly's friends became so concerned about her behavior that he asked another student to distract her at school. During this time, he went to Carly's mother's classroom to tell her that Carly was smoking marijuana and acting strangely. On the morning of Tuesday, March 19, 2024, Carly and this friend got into a heated argument. She was furious when she learned he had betrayed her trust and shouted at him in front of other students. Despite this confrontation, the rest of the school day went by without further incidents. That afternoon, Carly and her mother left school together around 3:30 p.m., following their usual routine. What happened during the drive home remains unknown. They may have chatted, argued, or stayed silent. When they arrived home a little before 4 p.m., Carly let the dogs out while her mother went to her bedroom to search for marijuana. Ashley quickly found several vape pens, which she took to her own room before returning to continue searching Carly's room. When Carly came back inside, she walked to her mother's bedroom, grabbed a loaded .357 Magnum from under the mattress, and hid it behind her back. She walked through the kitchen and into her own bedroom. Moments later, a loud gunshot shattered the quiet of the afternoon. It was followed by 2 screams and 2 more gunshots. Carly returned to the kitchen a few seconds later. She and the dogs appeared distressed, as if something terrible had happened. She quickly removed one of the home's security cameras and hid it in the refrigerator. Over the next 45 minutes, Carly texted at least 5 of her friends and used her mother's phone to send a message to her stepfather, Heath Smiley. Pretending to be her mother, she asked him when he would be home and even addressed him as Honey. One of the friends Carly messaged arrived at the house shortly after. When she walked in, Carly asked if she had ever seen a dead body and then led her to the bedroom. There, they found Ashley lying on the floor with her arms crossed and a cloth covering her face. Carly reportedly told her friend that there were 3 bullets left in the gun and that she planned to use them on her stepfather, Heath Smiley. Terrified, Carly's friend fled the house. Not long after, Heath arrived home and immediately sensed something was wrong. Carly appeared in front of him with wide eyes and a frantic look. A gunshot rang out, grazing Heath's shoulder. Despite being injured, he managed to back away and wrestle with Carly to take the gun. Surprisingly, she didn't fire again, but instead screamed and ran out the back door. She disappeared into the nearby woods, accompanied by another friend who had been in the backyard during the altercation. Fortunately, Heath's injury was minor, and he was able to call 911 for help.
Calm down. What's your name? Okay, calm down for me. Give me your name again. Heath Smiley. Heath Smiley? Yes, sir. All right, mister, what's your phone number you calling me from? Did she hit you? Yeah, I got hit in the neck a little bit. Okay, so she grazed your neck? Yes, sir. All right, and what's her name? Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg? Does she still have a gun on her? I took it from her. She ran. You took it from her and she ran? Yes, sir. She was screaming something at me I couldn't understand. I locked the door. She's outside. I don't know what's going on. Which way did she run off to? She ran into the backyard. It went over a fence. Ran into the backyard and went over your fence? Yeah. What is she wearing? T-shirt, gray shirt and some jeans. Gray shirt and jeans? About how tall is she? 5'2". About 5'2"? What color hair? Brownish, short hair. Back door, she opened fire on me. And was just screaming. Okay, just calm down for me. We got everybody in. She what? She killed her mom. She killed her mom? Yeah, that's what I'm screaming about. Where
Franklin County Deputy Hunter Lewis was the first to arrive on the scene. After opening the door, Heath collapsed onto the front porch.
She ran into the backyard. I tried to follow her. She jumped the fence and ran. She shot me in the neck. It's okay. Does she still have the gun? It's on the kitchen counter. I think there's one live round left in it. I opened the cylinder. I went in the back door. She tried to shoot me. Hey, I need some gloves. What's her name? Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg? How old is she? 14. She'll be 15 next month.
The deputy advised Heath to remain calm as the situation unfolded. Soon, more officers and EMTs arrived at the scene. They discovered Ashley's body in Carly's bedroom. She had already passed away, having suffered 2 gunshot wounds to her face and another under her chin. While securing the house, officers found additional firearms, raising concerns that Carly might have returned or taken another weapon. Once the home was deemed safe, Heath was transported to the hospital by ambulance. Later that afternoon, Carly was located less than a mile from the house and taken into custody.
Handcuffed. All right, sweetie. Look. Let me step out real quick for me. All right. Hey, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them around to the front of you, okay? I'm going to move the handcuffs around to the front of you. Okay. All right. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to swab your hands, okay? Right. Now, we'll ask you a bunch of questions, but obviously you fired with a pistol, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, look. I need you to hold your hand out like this. I'm going to do your right hand first, okay? It's your right hand. Like that.
Swab up here.
What is this?
It's a GSLR. It shows which hand did you shoot with?
Okay.
Which hand did you shoot with? Alright,
I'm going to go up.
flop the hand, turn the hand over,
Turn it over.
and rub on the outside part around the knuckles.
Where do you want, where do you want this from? I guess you can put it in my vehicle with my key. The key fob is in my left pocket.
Alright, now so go ahead and take. Alright.
Is my stepdad okay?
I don't know, baby. I can't talk to you
Oh,
about
he's here. I'm sorry.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Carly was still a minor at the time, but prosecutors charged her with first-degree murder and attempted murder. During the preliminary hearing, her lawyer asked Judge David Marrow for a low bond, arguing that Carly had been a good student and had no prior criminal record. The attorney also explained that Carly was set to undergo a mental health evaluation and wasn't a danger to herself or others. However, Judge Marrow disagreed. He stated that the severity of the crimes suggested they could have been planned and that Carly posed a risk to the community. Although he acknowledged that mental health might be a factor in the case, he ultimately set her bond at $1 million, keeping her in custody. Before the trial began, state prosecutors offered Carly a plea deal of 40 years in prison. This would give her a chance to be released later in life, but her defense team decided to take the case to trial instead. They believed they might secure a lighter sentence, or possibly even an acquittal. To defend Carly, they planned to show that she loved her mother. The crimes weren't premeditated, and she was struggling with mental health issues at the time. They prepared to use testimony about her relationship with her mother, entries from her journal, and the results of her psychiatric evaluation to make their case. The trial began on Monday, September 16, 2024, less than a year after Ashley's death, with Judge Dewey K. Arthur presiding. The courtroom was filled with emotion, especially since Ashley's parents and her husband, Heath Smiley, were in the audience. To the surprise of many, they attended to support Carly, even though she had been charged with Ashley's murder and the attempted murder of Heath. During her opening statement, State Prosecutor Catherine White Newman told the court that the shootings happened just hours after Ashley found out Carly had been smoking marijuana. She argued that Carly acted out of anger because her mother was about to take her drugs away. Newman then gave a detailed account of the events leading up to the crime as Carly sat quietly at the defense table, listening to every word.
We're here because on March the 19th, 2024, Carly rode to school with her mother that day. Ashley was a school teacher at Northwest Rankin, taught geometry. Carly was in the 10th grade. You'll hear that morning she got in a little altercation with one of her friends, cussed him out. But what you'll hear, ladies and gentlemen, from the testimony of this friend is that he was so worried about Carly's use of smoking marijuana, and so worried about her being high, and so worried about her having these burner phones that her mom didn't know about, that he felt compelled to tell Miss Ashley Smiley that day. Ladies and gentlemen, after the incident with Carly that morning, you'll hear that he gets in touch with another friend, and he's like, hey, you got to keep her distracted so I can go tell Miss Smiley what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, this friend cared about Carly. He was like, I gotta intervene. I gotta tell her. I'm afraid of what's happening. You'll hear from him that he did in fact tell Miss Smiley. That after 4th block that day, he goes and he tells Miss Smiley, hey, Carly has got these vapes. She's got this phone. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear then that Carly Gregg rides in the car home with her mother from school to their house. They leave school sometime after 3:30. They get home a little before 4. You'll hear that when they get inside the house, it's only their 2 dogs, Ashley Smiley and Carly Gregg. Immediately, Carly goes and lets the dogs out. You'll hear testimony that Ashley then goes into Carly's room. You'll hear that while Ashley is in her room, that Carly's still outside. At some point, Ashley finds what law enforcement believe to be the 4 boxes that contain vape pens. Testimony will be that we believe she carried them from Carly's room to her bedroom, went back to searching Carly's room. The evidence will show that almost immediately upon Carly coming inside the house, that she walks straight to her parents' bedroom, that she goes straight to her mom's side of the bed and removes a .357 Magnum from under the mattress. We believe the testimony will be that then she concealed that .357 Magnum behind her back. As she walked through the kitchen, she peeks her head around. We believe the testimony will show that she peeks her head around the kitchen to make sure that her mom hasn't come out of her bedroom. We believe the evidence will then show that she walked with that .357 Magnum behind her back, walked in to her own bedroom, and then fired 3 shots into her mother, killing her.
When it was the defense team's turn, Carly's attorney argued that she was struggling with mental illness and was a victim herself, just like her mother, Ashley, and her stepfather, Heath. The attorney highlighted the close bond Carly shared with her mother and described her as an excellent student who often went out of her way to make her mother and stepfather proud.
We believe the evidence will show that there were 3 victims on March 19th. Ashley Smiley, Heath Smiley, and Carly Smiley. From Carly Gregg. That they were all 3 victims. We believe the evidence will show that Carly had been suffering from a mental illness, that Carly was not aware on March 19th that she had a mental illness. We believe the evidence will show that Carly's parents, who lived with her, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness. We believe the evidence will show that Carly's close friends, who saw her at school every day, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness, because it's hard to look at a person and understand that they have a mental illness. It's hard to look at a person and know that they have a mental illness. That's why it's often referred to as the invisible disease. A person can exhibit symptoms of a mental illness without people necessarily knowing that they have one, or other people necessarily knowing that's what another person has. While the events on March 19th were tragic, the events on March 19th were not intentional. The evidence will show, and the testimony will show, that Carly Gregg loved her mother. That Carly Gregg and her mother had a loving, close relationship. Carly Gregg's mom loved her. In fact, her life revolved around Carly, as parents' lives often do revolve around their children. Carly very much wanted to please her mother. Carly was an exceptional student, made a 30 on the ACT when she was 13 years old. She was the apple of her mother and her stepfather's eye. And you will understand by the conclusion of this hearing why Carly's stepfather is still supporting her and standing behind her. Because he knows on March 19th, there were 3 victims.
Before any witnesses took the stand, the prosecution played the 911 call that Heath Smiley made on the day of the incident. The 3-minute recording filled the courtroom with tension. As it played, Carly closed her eyes and covered her ears, seemingly unable to listen to the distressing audio.
Okay, just calm down for me. We got everybody headed for She what? She killed her mom. She killed her mom? Yeah, that's what I'm screaming about. Where's the mom? Mom, when I do that, she tried to kill me. Where's the mom?
Next, Carly's therapist, Rebecca Kirk, testified. Her testimony was significant since she had conducted several sessions with Carly, including one the day before the alleged murder. Ms. Kirk stated that she had never observed any signs that Carly was capable of violence. In her sessions, Carly typically appeared only mildly melancholic, nothing more.
And you state in your last session with me, she appeared emotionally stable and she had no or homicidal feelings suspected by me nor spoken by her. So I want to ask you about that. You said that she didn't tell you about any feelings, but you didn't think that there was anything like that going on either.
No, that's correct.
And then you also noted that she did not indicate that our week was negatively affecting her.
Correct.
What did you mean by that?
Well, anytime that a person's prescription meds change, you need them to be very concerned about side effects, feelings of things of that sort. And so I wanted to follow up and make sure she wasn't experiencing negative reactions regarding that.
You also said that, nor did she appear different from any other sessions, nor emotionally unstable or dysregulated. Can you talk about what that means?
Yes, just kind of basically what we said, that was on the first part of each of my sessions. Like, she seemed very oriented to time and space and didn't seem to have erratic speech, loud speech, to be overly angry or overly happy. Just, a normal situation, observance of her.
And then you go on to say she did not appear melancholy nor zoned out emotionally. Can you talk about what you meant there?
Yeah, she had reported several times that, at least one time maybe, but I feel like I maybe wrote it more than once, I'm not sure, that with some of the Zoloft, she felt like a zombie. And so, she never really appeared that way to me ever, but she had reported it, so I put it in my notes when that had occurred. But I was saying here that I didn't notice any of it as well.
And you talked about how you had gone through conflict management with Carly on the day before the incident.
Correct.
I think you also talked about kind of what you observed between Carly and Ashley's relationship. Can you talk about why you thought that was important to put in your record?
Yes, sure. Well, ordinarily, termination of care is in a very different manner, and I knew that this one was a very sad act that occurred, and I wanted to be clear that I did not ever observe them together other than in the waiting room, and I never really saw, anything that would allude me to believe that, or hint at any kind of very severe danger or threat.
At any point during your treatment and sessions with Carly, did you think that she was being physically abused by anyone?
No, never. In fact, I asked several times about the stepdad, and I'm very confident in her response, verbally and non-verbally, that it felt very much to me like that nobody that she was living with had been abusing her. Now, her biological father, yes.
And she described some incidents where he had been physical with Ashley as well. Mm-hmm. And then what about, I didn't see any note of this, but did she at any point ever report that she had been sexually by anyone?
No, she told me she had not.
Court's indulgence. No further questions, Your Honor.
After Miss Kirk's testimony, the prosecution focused on Carly's journals, which became a major point of debate between both sides. Prosecutor White Newman presented several journal entries to the jury, including one she read aloud. "You don't need a family, and it's okay to be evil." The prosecution argued that these words demonstrated malice and intent, which could undermine any claim that Carly was not guilty by reason of insanity. In contrast, Carly's defense team claimed the entries showed she was battling serious mental health issues. While it was unclear how the jury interpreted the journals, the next witness, Carly's stepfather, Heath Smiley, took the stand. Calmly and with composure, Heath told the court that Carly had always been the most important part of Ashley's life.
How much did Ashley love Carly?
They loved each other so much. She just, everything she did, she planned out for Carly and around Carly.
Tell us about yours and Carly's relationship before March 19, 2024.
We were always good. We laughed and played and messed around, loved video games, and took her to karate stuff until she kind of got tired of that, and she started going to guitar practice weekly, so I was taking her to that every week. We got along great.
You liked being a stepdad?
Yes.
Sometimes with children comes discipline, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you say, or how would you describe the type of parent that Ashley was to Carly?
She was, like I said, always thinking about Carly and just Carly's first no matter what. She would do anything in the world for her and would try to get the best for her every day.
Were there times that you and Ashley would have to punish Carly?
Of course.
Give us some examples of that, Heath.
She had troubles growing up with back and forth with the stepdad and everything, so she would always wanting to try to make friends at the house and around home.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen exactly what you remember about when you came home on March the 19th, 2024.
Everything seemed pretty normal, and came on in, and when I opened the door to the kitchen there, gun went off in my face before the door was, 3 or 4 inches wide open. And everything kind of went pretty fast from there. It was a blur, gun flash in my face, and then it went off 2 more times, but my hand was on the gun after the first shot. and I twisted it from her.
Who was pointing that gun at you?
It was Carly.
Who pulled the trigger when you opened the door?
The first one I know was Carly. After that, my hand was on the gun too, and I know I had a scratch on my thumb and all. I very well could have hit it, I know, that third time.
Did you ever get struck by a bullet?
Yes, one of them kind of grazed right through this muscle up here.
Heath spared no details when recounting the events leading up to his wife's death. He provided a vivid and graphic description of how he discovered Ashley's lifeless body, painting a harrowing picture for the court.
Checked her bedroom, bathroom, closet, other side of the bed, under the desk in there, and turned and started going towards the other end of the house. And I glanced in our spare little third bedroom, and then turned and went into Carly's room. And that's where I found Ashley.
When you found Ashley, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen what you saw?
She was laying on her back and had her hands kind of across her, and a towel over her face.
Heath's demeanor made it clear that he was simply providing honest testimony under oath. Despite the tragedy, there was no sign of resentment toward Carly, whom he appeared to love as his own daughter. At one point, he even glanced at Carly and silently mouthed, "I love you." On the third day of the trial, the defense called psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Clark to the stand. Dr. Clark had been hired before the trial to evaluate Carly, review her medical history, and determine if she had a genuine mental health condition. He began by discussing Carly's mental state in the weeks and days leading up to her mother's death.
Her mood was flat, that she was zombie, that she was still quite depressed, she was still cutting. She also reported that the voices were getting worse, that they were becoming more urgent, more prominent, and she was beginning to worry that they were taking over for her. Now, she told me that the only thing the voices said to her were things that were kind of elitist, like, "You're better than those people." Like, that's the only thing she told me they said. So her mood is poor, the voices are getting worse, her sleep continues to be bad, and she's smoking marijuana on 2 or 3 times a week. She also reported that she had a fair amount of anxiety during this time as well.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
Dr. Clark, when did you first receive the Vital Core records?
So I received the Vital Core records, or the records from the Rankin County Correctional Facility for her psychiatric treatment and medication. And I didn't receive them until I had already interviewed Carly.
Dr. Clark testified that Carly suffered from depression and anxiety and frequently experienced auditory hallucinations, commonly referred to as hearing voices in her head. To support his findings, he referenced a journal entry Carly had written on March 12, 2024. In it, she described having a loud argument with one of the voices, which she said triggered a psychotic break.
Now, are auditory hallucinations or hearing voices typically what someone with bipolar II disorder is going to be experiencing?
No. The short answer is no. It's not usual for someone with bipolar II disorder to hear voices. Sometimes people that get very depressed can experience auditory hallucinations, hear voices along with that. People that are manic can absolutely experience auditory hallucinations. They can become very psychotic. But otherwise, it's really not at all common.
And based on what you reviewed in preparing for your evaluation of Carly, were there any indications in any documents where Carly had reported hearing voices prior to March 19th?
Yes.
Okay. Where?
So the document in particular was her journal entry from March 12th of 2024, 1 week before the incident.
Your Honor, may I approach? We put Carly's journal into evidence. I'll just hand you that copy of it. Now, you mentioned a journal entry from March 12th.
Correct.
Okay. And is that the journal entry that I've handed you there?
It is.
Is that the same journal entry that you reviewed?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me what about that journal entry stood out to you in your review?
Would you like for me to read it?
Yes.
So Carly had kept a journal. It looked like it began in January of 2024, just after after she'd been found by her mother to have been engaging in these behaviors. She kept the journal through much of January and then dropped off. And then this, as I recall, was the only entry in March. So writing on March 12th, Tuesday, she writes, "I think I had a psychotic break earlier. The whole ordeal was quite silly. I actually spoke with one of the voices in my head. Well, I didn't hear them until earlier today, but I only do then. My particular friend and I were practically screaming, bloodthirstily and ravenously. Thank God, physical confrontation was not, and I think it's fruitively, possible. I sound crazy." And then she goes on to say, "I need to get back into the habit of journaling. That think it's good. I haven't quite decided if I'll bring this stupid thing to Mrs. Kirk, her therapist, tomorrow, but I can't decide!" Exclamation mark.
Dr. Clark testified that Carly suffered from eating and sleeping disorders, engaged in self-harm, and smoked marijuana almost daily. He also noted that the abrupt switch from Zoloft to Lexapro the week before her mother's death caused severe mood swings. Ultimately, Dr. Clark diagnosed Carly with bipolar II disorder. His testimony seemed to suggest to the jury that Carly may not have been fully responsible for her actions. However, the prosecution's final witness, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Jason Pickett, offered a starkly different perspective. Dr. Pickett suggested that Carly's journal entries might have been written for theatrical reasons and read one of her entries about hearing voices. "It was shocking to hear," he stated. But Carly never mentioned hearing voices to her therapist or anyone other than Dr. Clark, either before or after her mother's death. Dr. Pickett claimed Carly was manipulative and narcissistic, insisting she never had bipolar disorder. He argued that Carly was mentally sound and fully aware of her actions when she killed her mother. During closing arguments after the 5-day trial, prosecutor Catherine White Newman acknowledged Carly's appearance as a sweet young girl. However, she told the jury that Carly was extremely dangerous. To reinforce her point, she read 2 of Carly's journal entries again: "You don't need a family," and "It's okay to be evil." Miss White Newman asked the jury to sentence Carly to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I want you to look at her journals. There's a page back there that says, "What do I believe?" There's no God, heaven and hell are false. You writing your own destiny. And these 2 stand out to me, ladies and gentlemen. She told us what her intent was. You don't need family, and it's okay to be evil.
2 minutes, man.
There's another one I want you to look at. Dr. Pickett talked about it. She wrote, "Water, fire, earth. Water, fire, earth." She circles fire, ladies and gentlemen. And she wrote, these are Carly Gregg's own words. Miss Todd stated when we got started the other day, what's better, watching a video of what happened or hearing somebody talk about it? Well, I submit to you, we have all of the above in this case. We got to, unfortunately, watch a video of what happened. We've seen photos of what happened. We have audio of what happened. We have the defendant's journals and text messages telling us what happened. She says, "I choose fire. It is powerful, beautiful, and deadly. These are the traits I desire, so I choose fire." Ladies and gentlemen, that lady right there chose fire. She chose to murder her mother, tried to kill her stepdad, and then tried to cover it up. We ask that when you go back to the jury room, that you'll look at all the evidence, that you'll consider the testimony that you've heard, that you will not be misled or confused by the fact that the defendant tries to put a burden on the state that does not exist. We do not have to prove the why. We will likely never know the why, but we know that Carly Gregg is guilty of murder, attempted murder, and tampering with physical evidence, and we ask you to find the same. Thank you.
During the brief trial, Carly's emotions shifted between appearing indifferent and showing deep distress. She broke down again during closing arguments when it dawned on her that she might spend the rest of her life in prison. On Friday, September 20th, 2024, the jury in Rankin County, Mississippi, returned to the courtroom with their verdict. They found 15-year-old Carly Gregg guilty of first-degree murder for killing her mother, guilty of attempted murder for shooting her stepfather, Heath Smiley, and guilty of tampering with evidence for removing a security camera after the crimes. As the prosecution had requested, Carly was sentenced to 2 concurrent life sentences and an additional 10 years for evidence tampering, all without the possibility of parole. Carly broke down in tears as the verdict was read, likely regretting the 40-year plea deal her defense team had turned down earlier. In the gallery, her maternal grandparents and stepfather, Heath Smiley, watched the proceedings in disbelief. Carly's emotions spiraled to the point where her friends had to escort her out of the courtroom. Yet, when she returned, she was inexplicably smiling, as though nothing had happened. After the trial, Rankin County District Attorney Bubba Bramlett addressed the press, calling Carly evil and stating, "As hard as it is to admit, sometimes evil comes in young packages."